Hey kids, do you like wrestling? Well, we like wrestling too. We are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Myself and Chris Novembrino kind of doing a lazy river of wrestling criticism, going through the news and whatever happened in stateside television wrestling. And also, you know what? Sometimes we just like to watch old stuff and talk about that too. Love for you to give us a listen. If you haven't already, we are Shake Them Ropes here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hey there, Thunder Buddies and Travelers down Thunder Road. It's us, Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder Rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway, coming to as part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network and powered by largemanapears.com. I'm your host, your bunch of guys running out at ringside on Thunder Road, Dave Ryan. And I'm joined as I am every week by my faithful co-host. He's Stagger Lee Malone. Lee, how are you this week?
I'm particularly annoyed after having watched this episode of Thunder, but we will get to that later on. But I'm generally in good form. Feeling a little bit lethargic. I had an incredible massage after work today, so I'm nice and relaxed. And you would think I'd be fairly chill, but it's coming up to 10 o'clock in the evening, and I'm sipping away on a coffee to keep the energy levels up and make sure I am the right level of irritated and annoyed for when we run down this road to Starrcade, as it were.
What's happened to us, man? Like, we used to drink to get through these, and now it's you've got a stiff coffee. I've got a Pepsi Max, maximum taste, zero sugar.
Well, see, what happened was that I have now a 2.5-year-old, almost 3-year-old daughter who's a lot, and you're about to enter fatherhood.
Yeah, which means I should be drinking quite heavily for the next 6 months. Cause
get it while you can, mate. Get it while you can.
Yeah, that old liquor cabinet is going to get fairly fucking dusty after March, let me tell you.
But, so...
I'm in that, like, I don't know if you're in that, like, I'm sort of in that space right now where, like, obviously, you know, thank God everything's going well. But I'm still of an evening here when we're doing this, like, because we do it in kind of the late evening, late night kind of time slot. I'd love to be able to open an adult beverage, but I've started to develop that anxiety that the one evening I have alcohol is the one evening we'll need to go down to the hospital to check something out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a weird space to be in, isn't it? We had talked privately about that kind of, like, there is something to be said about this kind of, like, the fatherly impulse and instinct, which is something, like, I don't usually believe in these kind of things, but it's definitely there already.
Oh, it kicks in very, very quickly. I always remember that when my son was born, one of the first people I spoke to...
Shout out to the big dog.
Yeah, the big dog. Who's he's still asking me when he can do another show with us, but...
Oh. Well, we have always speculated privately about an ideal opponent for your son, because he wiped the floor with the pair of us in his
Oh, that is true. Yeah, I actually forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah, but we did come up with the great dream opponent for him, and
yes.
when that becomes a possibility,
I genuinely think it might be one of the best podcasts ever.
The two of us could just leave. Like.
If we were to make it happen, I genuinely think it would be incredible. But getting back to the point I was making, after my son was born, one of the first people I spoke to was my uncle, one of my uncles. And he said that it's incredible. He said, did you feel that, like, the first time you hold your new child, you feel like you have never loved anything before as much as you love this little thing in your hands? Yeah. And it is so true. And it's no offense to, like, anybody else in your life, but it's like, you don't know that joy until you've held, like, a child.
Yeah, like, I don't know if I spoke about it on air, but we had that moment, like, because we're first-time parents, where, look, there was a night where there was, like, an odd pain that hadn't existed before, so we said, like, we'd ring the midwife anyway and just check, like, and I know there's kind of, like, the anxious first-time parents, it's a bit of a trope that they go down for any old thing, but, like, it is true when it's something that, like, in Emma's case, it's happening in your body, and you don't understand it. Look, it's better to be safe than sorry. I totally
Absolutely.
get it now. But, like, as I was talking to you, like, just something took over and I just went on autopilot. And it was just like, right. Because you are, as the father, like, you are basically along for the ride for most of the pregnancy. Like, you're not doing any of the hard work for most of it. So it was almost like this thing is like, right, now I have a task. And it's a task I can do, which is do the drive to the hospital. And I fully Dukes of Hazzard that shit. You have never seen a man cross into the Midlands of Ireland quicker than I did that night. And then the adrenaline, like, once I got there, the wear off of the adrenaline was, like, crazy.
Yeah.
This is a child that isn't even born yet, you know?
I don't look, come here, the very same, like, the hospital that we've gone to twice is, I want to say, like, 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes from where we are, and I have absolutely gotten there in under 20 minutes.
Yeah. Hit the ground in spots, as my granddad would say.
But yeah, no, it's that incredible feeling. But see as we're talking about children and kind of the love you feel for those in your life, yes. I have a question for you, Dave.
Okay.
So, friends of ours, we were talking about this. My wife and a friend of hers are very nostalgic and hold on to mementos and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And one thing that they cherish is cards, greeting cards, whether it be birthday cards, Christmas cards, communion cards.
Okay, yeah.
I am not that way inclined. I have no sentimentality when it comes to greeting cards. I don't see the point.
Is it when it comes to life?
David, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm part of a WCW rewatch podcast. There are some things I hold near and dear to my heart. But
it's the moniker we missed out on,
isn't
it? The moniker we missed out on was Days of Thunder. Abandon all sentiment, ye who enter.
But greeting cards is not something I care to keep. Like our friend was putting in messages into the our group chat today, and she has cards from like 29 years ago, 30 years ago from her dad and nanny and stuff. And I was just like, I don't know, maybe I'm broken, but they're just words on a card.
Yeah, no, I'm broadly the same. Now, like, there is a box in my attic that my mom had put together when I was a kid, because she would have had that sentimentality, and there are some cards in there that I would have received on, like, landmark birthdays. She was basically collecting, like, cards and tat and, like, my bracelet from the hospital and stuff like that in a box from, like, and my first lock of hair and stuff like that from when I was born until when she passed. And I guess technically then that means I've held on to some cards, but I've held on to them because they were important to her rather than that they're important to me. Because like, as soon as I get, like, I have there's one card on my shelf here, and it's one from Jack Lazell. It's the
Jesus
only one
Christ.
I kept, right? Because he wrote, I don't know if I ever showed you this, He got me a really nice engagement card, a custom-made engagement card when myself and Emma got engaged, right? It's the only one I kept because we got it in the post. I'm like, oh, this is really nice. I wonder who's this from. And opened it up, and all it says on the inside is Matthew Broderick killed a guy. It doesn't even say who it's from.
Well, I mean,
it's to.
That's employed, and it's also to the guards, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you did tell me about it, but seeing it on camera is another thing.
Because the backstory to this is that like
Matthew Broderick killed a guy.
Yeah, well, Jack visited here one time, and I don't know how we got onto it when he was here. We were talking about like celebrity moments that he knows about happening in Ireland or something like that. And I just assumed he knew that like Matthew Broderick was involved in a lethal hit and run, and I think it was 2 women were killed. Mm-hmm. And he was floored by this, that this isn't something that people are talking about all the time. So then, like, anytime we met anybody that whole weekend when we were like touring around Ireland meeting our friends, he just immediately greet them with do you know Matthew Broderick killed a guy?
It was a big story in like the newspapers, I want to say like 10 years ago.
Well, it was in the early 90s.
Yeah, but didn't it like come back around about 10 years ago, and that's when it like really became kind of part of the cultural kind of knowledge?
Yeah, I want to say maybe there was like a settlement, or maybe it was... Oh, do you know what it was? I think it was that like...
It passed a certain amount of time or something, hasn't it?
Well, no, because he's married to Sarah Jessica Parker now, and I think they came back and it was his first time in Ireland since.
Okay, maybe that's what it was.
I think that's what it was, because he owns like it's up in Donegal on the northwest coast. Mm-hmm. He owns like a cottage or something there, and just hadn't he either hadn't been back or it hadn't been news that he was back in that, because like the actual incident occurred in like late 80s, early 90s. Which is kind of like, it's understandable then why a lot of people wouldn't have known about it. This has taken quite a turn from I don't keep gift cards. But isn't it one of those things where like that card is so weird that it's kind of funny, but it's also I keep it because like, how do you throw out a card like that? Would you not be worried that the bin men would go through your recycling and see just in massive, bold Helvetica?
What kind of things do you think are going on that a "you're engaged" card then says inside Matthew Broderick killed a guy?
It invites many questions if you're somebody devoid of context. And even I, as somebody who fully knew the context, was utterly perplexed when I got this in the post. I was kind of surprised that a greeting card company would allow that to go through as a request to make.
Because this is the thing. I don't know if you said this when you were describing the card here. It's in bold print.
Yeah.
Taking up the majority of the card space.
Yeah, like it's about an A5 size, like on the inside, standard greeting card size, and it takes up like 75% of the room. Like there actually is almost no room if Jack had decided to sign it from himself, which he did not. He just thought that one statement spoke for itself and said no more. So yeah, that's the one greeting card I have. But like to more directly address your question, yeah, usually like once I've read the card. And in my youth, once I've read the card and shaken it loose if there's money inside it, it was promptly sent to the recycling pile. Like maybe there was kind of a tradition in my grandparents' house that I grew up in, that you'd kind of, on the day of your birthday, you would adorn the fireplace. The mantle on the fireplace with the birthday cards. And then you'd kind of pretty much immediately afterwards.
Throw them in the fire.
Yeah, there's kind of... I am kind of glad that it seems like it's only the big occasions now that get the card. Because, like, do you remember a time when we were growing up where, like, everybody sent and made Christmas cards? And that doesn't seem to be as big a deal anymore at all.
Yeah, now maybe it's just because I'm weird and I don't do the whole card thing. But, like, we used to get, like, we're 15 years in our house now. And I want to say the first 10 years, like, all the neighbours would give in cards.
Yeah.
And now I'd say there's maybe half of them do it.
Yeah, I don't... And my family would be very traditional like that and would have sent them for years, but they all just kind of packed it in about 8 or 9 years ago, I'd say. It just petered out. And then there used to be... I remember people used to give each other cards for Easter or for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, Easter card,
That's almost completely gone, and that was to my grandfather's ruination. I know people love stories of my grandfather on here. One of his things was to store up holiday-themed cards and send them to people on the wrong days because he thought it was very funny. So I got a Christmas card one year that was a St. Patrick's Day card from him Now, you could also question the wisdom of man who would send a greetings card to somebody he lived with. So it was already a little off-piste.
Hang on, did he actually pay for a stamp to send a card in the post to you?
If I recall, yes. Yes.
And yet
and he would wheeze laughing every time he did it to somebody, even though he did it to everybody all the time. You get like an Easter card on your birthday.
But this man insisted that you were stealing his cornflakes.
Yeah, I told you what he did one year for my granny that he thought was really, this again, he thought he invented comedy when he did this, is that for her present, he sellotaped one sheet of newspaper to the Hoover and put a bow on it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And again, like fully almost to the point of needing to call an ambulance for him. He was laughing so hard at himself.
See, it's not funny what he did. It's the fact that he found it funny.
Oh yeah, no. It's always how much he sells it, how much he pops for himself, and no one else does.
Oh God, that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. God, yeah. I had a couple more up in the chamber there, but I think I'll pepper them out as occasions present themselves. That is a prime slice of my granddad.
But do let us know, like, is it just us that aren't sentimental when it comes to greeting cards, or is it just kind of a dying thing?
Yeah, I feel like it is a bit, because there used to be a lot more shops that like just did cards.
Birthdays.
Yeah, there used to be Hallmark shops and things like that. And
no, but birthdays was literally the card shop.
Yeah. Oh no, I remember. Yeah.
I always remember because Brian Robson owned a percentage of it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
There's a chain now called Card Factory, but that's like all kind of encompassing your cards, your wrapping paper, your gift boxes, and like also the thing that card shops tried to cling on to stay alive was like selling candles and reed diffusers and stuff like that. Well, but those again are few and far between. Every town used to have 1 to 2 of those shops, and now not so much.
See, you're like me. You're old enough to remember the Easons in the big Easons in O'Connell Street, which would have literally a whole floor of the store dedicated to greeting cards. Yeah, and different types of occasions and.
Yeah, now is that the stationery level now in that place?
Yeah, I think it's I haven't been in there in many years, but yeah, I think it's all kind of condensed down.
Oh. I still go there because there's like a Tower Records up the top in it. Like
it's still there.
Two of the only Tower Records left on Earth are both in Dublin. One of them is on the top floor of a bookshop, and the other one's on Dawson Street, and they're both great.
And the other one has a what's the fucking burger shop underneath it?
So that's the old location. The new location on Dawson Street doesn't have yet. So, so where the old Tower Records was, there's a bar beside it that has a Wow Burger in the basement.
Yes.
Yeah, that we went to before a wrestling show.
We did, yes.
At least one time. It was great to be able to get a big filthy burger, garlic butter chips, and a pint without having to go to a second location. It's good times. Mm-hmm. I was actually talking to somebody recently about when you used to peruse record shops, like getting CDs growing up, and that really brought me down like a nostalgia trip. There was like a while where I was going to like Virgin Megastore and places to buy my wrestling tapes, and the record shop in Nace where I lived at the time did have some wrestling tapes, but when it wasn't wrestling tapes, they opened up a record shop. I don't know what it is about record shops and bookshops, but they opened a record shop upstairs in the local bookshop in Nace at one stage, and they were doing what now I'm just like, it can't possibly have been an economic deal, and that may be why the record shop shut, but they're doing like a three CDs for €22 deal. That just like, that was my bread and butter for beefing out my all but the very newest CDs were in that deal. So like that was my musical education, was like every week I would get 3 albums and just listen to them like obsessively till the disc wore out. Like it was a great times. and because we were talking about that idea that now, I know like most people are listening to this on some sort of streaming app or podcast app, but these apps have kind of killed the permanence of music. Like there was a value to getting a physical CD and having to carry it around with you that I think not everybody, but there's a lot of kind of younger people that are, and it extends into wrestling fandom as well, that are like, it can be sometimes incurious about what came before, and because of like how streaming makes your attention jump around really quickly, you don't pick one thing or one pocket of time or one album or one band and necessarily sit with it in the way that maybe our generation would have. And I think there's something has been lost there.
Well, one of the great joys of our musical world growing up was the kind of, I don't want to say the mixtape, but you know those greatest hits tapes. So you know the now 92 or whatever. And
you know the classic Partridge joke is like, "What's your favorite Beatles album?" I'd have to say the best of the Beatles.
But that joy of like just sticking on a CD and playing through the whole playlist, and discovering something new or some new genre that you'd not heard before, or whereas like now it's unless it's coming up on somebody's For You playlist or you know things you may like. I mean, people just don't go outside their own box anymore.
Yeah. It's that. No, that doesn't cover everybody, but I definitely have seen that, like, in terms of a lot of facets of pop culture. Because I would have myself spread a bit across, like, movie discourse, music discourse, obviously wrestling discourse, and there is definitely an undercurrent of incuriosity that kind of saddens me, because this is not a unique point. It's been made in many places before, and you know, I often love Garrett Kidney's refrain on Twitter of like, stop learning your history from WWE documentaries. But it is true. It's like, I find it hard to believe, like, if you get into something and you really love that thing and you're passionate about it, how could you not want to absorb as much information as is available? And it's never been easier. It's never been easier if you want to do that and commit to that. But people have never been less interested in it on the whole, and that's kind of maddening to me. You know, we have all this stuff at the tips of our fingers that you and I would have fucking killed for growing up.
Yeah.
Like, you and I, like, any wrestling match that has happened in the history of the world ever that was recorded, you or I are only, like, a matter of minutes at worst away from being able to watch that.
Couple of clicks.
Through means legitimate or dubious, you know?
Yeah.
And we would have killed for that sort of situation, and now to kind of have all those resources at your fingertips and be like, no, actually I don't fancy it, just going to throw ones up for the tribal chief instead. Anyway, let's take a left turn, because that could go down a rabbit hole for another 25-30 minutes. We have the return 2 Thunders in a row of Snack Talk.
Ooh.
A feature that our patrons over at largemanapears.com, more of which anon, asked us to bring back more regularly. And we said, look, we're not going to force it as a feature, but as occasions present themselves, as we get into new and different snacks, as new things that would appeal to us or our audience come to the fore, we will endeavour to bring you a snack talk. And lo and behold, in between our last set of recordings and this, a new snack has entered the clearing, Lee. And I very deliberately kayfabed you on this. I didn't tell you
that
I'd gotten this. I even turned off my camera when I went to get it so that you wouldn't see it before I revealed it on the stream.
Okay, you did.
Now, Lee, 2 things about us that people know if they know their Days of Thunder history. We are old men, number 1.
Yes.
Okay. Number 2. And this is a quiz of yourself. Pre-pandemic, in the before times, when we were happy, right? Or happier.
We were younger, at least.
What was our exotic snack choice when we would go to Germany?
Oh, the Werther's popcorn.
From the great minds that brought you Werther's original popcorn.
Yeah.
I give you Werther's Original Blissful Bites. Werther's Original have made Maltesers.
Okay, is that what they are? I've seen them in the shop, but I've not got them yet.
Yes, they have made Maltesers. Now, I believe they come in a couple of varieties.
There's a couple of different flavors.
I believe there's a cookie one or something like that, and there's a blueberry one, I think Emma said as well. But she started me off with the OG. Now, what I am going to do is, because I am aware through my work that a lot of people out there have the condition known as misophonia, where the sound of chewing irritates them quite a bit. And because I'm somebody that is old enough on the internet to remember when Brian Alvarez got banned from the law for eating a Mars bar while he was drunk on the air, I got to learn from Brian on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a blissful bite, and I'm going to mute my microphone.
Ah, boo.
And I don't know. You can either sing a song.
Why do you care what people think? Just eat the fucking bite.
No, you have not. You clearly have not lived with danger, like when you see the look you get from somebody with misophonia when you start chewing, because that is risking your life. Let me tell you. I had a young person at work who said, "You're going to have to book me an extra table when we all get burgers, because if you don't, I will put a knife in someone's throat." I was like, "Okay." So, anyway, I will mute. If you want to give play-by-play or do a freestyle rap or something like that, look, you're a broadcasting expert at this stage, Lee. So you just, do your thing.
I was just going to sit in silence while you eat this, but seeing as you have suggested that Dave is very slowly putting his hand into the bag, and he's doing this, and it sounds awful as I'm trying to describe it. So I'm not going to describe all the things he is doing as Dave plays with this this caramel ball in his hand. I think he might choke actually with all of the laughter. He has a look on his face like Mike Enos just showed up as he tastes this. Oh, there's a little bit of pleasure, a little bit of confusion. He actually looks like he just read one of Lash LaRue's recent takes on Twitter as he goes for a second bite. I don't think the second bite was necessary. I think he just wanted to have a second one. Have you a verdict? Is the caramel sticking to the roof of your mouth?
Okay, we're safe. We're clear. That was an interesting experience. The malt doesn't crumble in the same way as the Malteser's malt.
Okay.
It's kind of a very dusty crumble. So it's more of a chewy... It kind of... The malt crumbles more like honeycomb than Malteser.
Oh, okay. So more of a crunchy...
Look, it's nice, but when you bite into something that has all the appearance of Malteser, it's kind of not what you expect. I would have expected the Werther's kind of caramel flavored chocolate coating on it to be stronger, more in your face that we're doing Werther's, but it's actually, if I can be so bold, a little bit subtle. So I wasn't getting strong Werther's flavor until I popped the second one.
Okay. So do you think it's a flavor that grows throughout the bag?
No teeth sticking, so there's no actual. It's not like melted Werther butter candy around the malt. It's like I said, a Werther's kind of flavored chocolate fondant kind of on the outside.
It's the cream filling, not the solid Werther's.
Now, what I would say about it is because it is the Werther's and it has that very sweet buttered candy flavor, I don't think it's a thing where you'd house an entire bag in a sitting. Kind of like when we used to have the popcorn. You wouldn't eat a whole bag of the original version in a sitting. Now, the version that had the pretzel chunks in it, so there was a little bit of salty cutting through that sweet, I think we all of us that went to Germany at one point housed a bag of pretzel stuff in one sitting, and we're very ashamed about it. Also a tiny bit proud. I give them a solid B.
Okay.
Oh, one thing I will say that's great about them, they're in like a share size bag, but they do have a proper, like one of the plastic resealable things where you can press it shut like a Ziploc. So it actually will reseal, unlike those share size bags you get that have the stupid
Cadbury ones
stickers. Yeah. But yeah, that's snack talk for this week. People did seem to enjoy our previous edition, so there you have it. Lee, while I wash this down with some Pepsi Max, I think it's time to let people know what's going on over on the Patreon.
Over on the Patreon. So largemanappears.com. For the cost of 5 Europeans, you will have received, just last week, our return to Rehash of the Champions. That was Clash 11. Sorry, was that... Yeah, it was, yeah.
No, that was
Clash
2
11.
shows ago. So
Two
it
shows
would have been... they would have gotten Ring of Honor this week.
Oh, yes, sorry, you are correct. Ring of Honor. Yes, so we did Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor 5, a show selected by Joshua Gavin. And that will not be our only trip to Ring of Honor, as our next upcoming show next week on the Patreon is also a TRL selected by Joshua Gavin, as he has selected Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor 5 Night 2. So we are doing back-to-back Ring of Honor shows for the first time ever on either the Patreon or the free feeds.
We've never done, outside of the main Thunder timeline, we've never done episodic Patreon content. You know what I mean? We've never done 2 shows that directly followed each other before.
So
for any promotion.
A first for us. And Joshua very, very kindly paid for 2 TRLs. So that's last week, night 1, featuring the incredible Briscoes versus Dean Erico main event. And next week we will have night 2, and I haven't got the card in front of me, so I can't remember what main events, but it's pretty much all of the same people on the show. It's just I think it's an ROH title match. I think it's Morishima and Brent Albright, maybe.
It certainly is. That's the semi-main event. The main event is the No Remorse Corps versus the Resilience, your favorite faction in wrestling.
So I will be turning the show off after the semi-main events.
On that show as well, we have Mark Briscoe, El Generico, Falls Count Anywhere. We have Sarah Del Rey versus Lacey. We have Dragon versus Quack. We have Jay Briscoe versus Kevin Steen, Lights Out. Takeshi Morishima, Brent Albright. We also have a Claudio and Nigel versus Chris Hero and Jigsaw tag team match.
A real mixed bag of a show with the sounds of things.
Indeed. And look, to peek behind the curtain, so was night 1. You can listen to us talk about that right now.
But yeah, so that's what's happened on the Patreon recently and coming up next week. We should say that we basically have the rest of the year planned out for the Patreon. So we have we will have Days of Thunder at the Movies coming up. One selected as a TRL. We will have had a Days of Thunder at the Movies Arcade Halloween number 4.
Yes,
coming up.
Number 4.
And yeah,
we have a Christmas special in the pipeline. People who are familiar with our Christmas specials will know what that means. I'll say no more.
Yeah.
We've also, Lee, started a couple of weeks ago, started a thread for our subscribers on Patreon to get feedback about they want to see more and less of on the Patreon and on the shows in general. So if you're an expired sub and you went, they're not doing show X anymore, you can hop in and get your thoughts in on the Patreon and let us know, because we already have plans for the return of a couple of favorites in late 24, early 25, and some new ideas brewing all the time of varying quality.
I think the one thing we can give away is that a lot of patrons seem to enjoy the Rehash series and would like to see a more consistent presence of that on the Patreon. So we will probably do a couple more episodes than in 2025 than we have in 2024 of Rehash.
Yeah. I think what we can say now is we'll think of we were trying to find the perfect balance with when we get TRLs in, getting them done as quickly as possible, while also trying not to interrupt that flow, because we had such a backlog of TRLs in season 3. Thanks to everybody so much for supporting us at the level to get a TRL in. which you can do yourself right now if you like. But because of that, there were months on the Patreon where the only Patreon podcasts that were coming out were TRLs, which left us kind of behind on our regularly scheduled programming. But we are retooling that so we can both make sure no one's waiting an extended period of time for TRL. And that stuff like Rehash is coming out. Stuff like Dragon Star Season 2. All that kind of stuff, it will be in the works and coming out at a much more regular pace.
We should add also not only the $5 tier, we also have, as Dave said, the $15 or the €15 TRL tier, where you can choose anything within reason for us to watch and review. And we also have the $1 or €1 tier, where you can subscribe, maybe not fully subscribe, but you can see what we have available on the Patreon. You can be part of the feedback thread and just kind of let us know how you what would bring you to being a full subscriber even.
Yeah. And you'll get the odd bit, if there's an odd bit of written content on there. When my show notes go up, they'll go on at the €1 tier as well. So you won't get nothing for your €1, but it is a by and large, I'm not able to sub right now, but I want to support the boys tier. And we appreciate all of us. Thank you so much for your continued support of this absolute clown show. Right, let's finally get into 1999. I want to talk some Observer with you, buddy. Some interesting things happened in the page 1 story, and it's all covering WWF Armageddon, which is, I guess you could say, it's significant for two things that happened on it. As Dave Meltzer said, it is a weird show. The headline match on the show was Vince and Triple H. This is the night of the Stephanie turn, leading to the McMahon-Helmsley faction, the McMahon-Helmsley regime, that would dominate TV, particularly in the first half of 2000. And, Dave, without kind of wanting to read a full page out of the Observer here, Dave is kind of burying that, like, look, Vince is terrible. And as a wrestling match, it was terrible. But he conceded, essentially, that, like, there were moments of great drama in this unbelievably long... This match goes about half an hour, I think we mentioned on a previous show. And Vince is 54 at the time. So it's like, it's kind of a, what would you expect from a 54-year-old non-wrestler at this time. So he's kind of like conceding that it was terrible. It wasn't to his taste, but people were kind of like, he's like, I'll give them their due that they got people hooked on it, the powerful angle at the finish. He said, apart from that, this was below the usual Hulk Hogan standards. So, jeez. But then there is another much more significant event that happens on this show that has repercussions for the company. Do you remember what that is?
Nothing springs to mind.
Okay, allow me to read this. And then there was the evening gown match. On Monday morning, the WWF sent out a press release which read, during the World Wrestling Federation's TV14 rated pay-per-view event titled Armageddon, on Sunday, December 12, 1999, an overzealous Miss Kitty flashed her breasts for less than 1 second in the Four Corners evening gown pool match for the WWF Women's title. WWF censors immediately placed a towel over her chest. Censors, by the way, being Sergeant Slaughter, if I remember correctly. Placed a towel over her chest. The WWF apologizes for this unauthorized exposure. I love unauthorized exposure. Sounds like another like WWF the music name. Like they had forcible entry a couple of years later. Unauthorized exposure. Or like one of those really creepy Divas DVDs they'd release like over the next few years. Unauthorized exposure.
Yeah. I love that they say it wasn't planned. It was totally planned.
Yeah. Yes, and this is the thing Dave said. He goes like, I don't know about you guys. What do you think? But he's like, nobody in the company, in the know or not in the know, ever even suggested the theory that Stacey Carter was going into business for herself until this press release came out. And I think this is a classic thing of like, the WWF during this period of time, like we've talked about the Parents Television Council being on them at this stage, and it's many years before they make the TV PG changeover. This is existing very much in a period where they are trying to have their cake and eat it at the same time. And that is, look, it's I'm not buying it. They managed to get away for it domestically, but it had repercussions elsewhere. Do you remember what those repercussions were?
Oh, they were on I want to say it was a 30-second delay on Channel 4.
Yes. So this was the thing that maybe had not been brought into consideration, is that it may have been on pay-per-view in the States, but it was airing on terrestrial television in the UK and by extension Ireland through Channel 4. And this was the first one.
Yes, it was their first show on
First
Channel 4.
show. And Channel 4 were pissed.
Now, fucking ironic, because
Yes.
Channel 4 was known
All
for pushing the
manner of
boundaries.
filth.
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, so Channel 4 were absolutely fucking livid because they had began to show Heat, I believe.
Yeah.
Heat had initially been on MTV in the UK as well as in the US, and Channel 4 quickly bought it out, started showing Heat, and then started to, I think they took, I want to say, 4 of the pay-per-views from Sky. It was 4 or 5. And yeah, on their first one this happened, and they were fucking pissed to the point that every other live event on Channel 4 was no longer live, as they insisted on, I want to say, it was something ridiculous. It was about 30 seconds of a delay.
Yeah. Now, that mattered less in that era because not a lot of people were online. So it wasn't like the delay was spoiling anything necessarily. It did result in, like, so Channel 4 would do painfully long ad breaks in the middle of pay-per-views, and we would miss things. Yeah, after this, they would do the Royal Rumble. I believe they did Backlash 2000. They did Backlash 2001. The last one I remember being on Channel 4 was Invasion, because I watched Invasion live on... I was allowed to stay up for Invasion on Channel 4. We didn't have Sky Sports.
Invasion was on Channel 4, but obviously you remember it was.
I still have the tape in my attic. The original broadcast of Invasion. Yeah, that was the last one I remember. I don't know. I know they were definitely on Sky Sports for a few months after that, because I was getting my uncle was recording the Invasion era pay-per-views for me and giving me them.
And it was not long after Channel 4 gave up their couple of pay-per-views that Sky began to charge extra for the pay-per-views then. Because
so they would still do the majority of pay-per-views on Sky Sports, but it was, you're right, that as soon as they started getting the ones back off Channel 4, they were putting, it wasn't even just the big four, like WrestleMania was behind
random
the
ones.
paywall. Yeah, WrestleMania is behind the paywall. Weirdly, the 2 UK pay-per-views they did every year for a few years, Rebellion and Insurrection, were behind the paywall. SummerSlam wasn't. Survivor Series wasn't. Maybe 2001 was, but 2002 definitely wasn't. And yeah, like you said, it'd be random. And like, as well, what I thought was really funny is when we got into the brand split pay-per-view era, it was almost always the ones I had less interest in that were behind the paywall. I was like, well, this worked out very well. And it was like WrestleMania and then random ones. But then
I want to say by
afterwards they'd air WrestleMania on Sky Sports anyway.
Yeah, I think it was by like late 2004 maybe that they were all paywalled then.
Yeah. Those were the dark days. The dark days. Because during that brand split era, they were seldom worth the money we were being asked. Like it was like €25 a go or some crazy shit like that. Not happening. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting because, like, look, it's a company that's always tried to have their cake and eat it and say, like, you know, it's something that was a refrain during the McMahon documentary. That idea that they would constantly bleat about being a family-run company while putting on like the most salacious content, violent content possible, and for a time that did actually work. But this is kind of the UK. You might say, look, the domestic market, it didn't really affect things because they were already under the cosh of the Parents Television Council. But it is sometimes forgotten about that the UK is and has always been WWE's second biggest market, and it did have a negative effect on, like, who's to say could the popularity of wrestling, specifically WWF, gotten even bigger in the UK by having pay-per-views free to air at their very peak? Like, we'll never know for sure. You would think, like, it was at such a critical mass during that period, how could it have possibly been even more popular? But like, look, it's a deal I wouldn't have wanted to jeopardize immediately if I were them.
But that's WWF and WWE. I mean, look at how fucking Fox Sports has fucking victory lapped everything they've done since they decided not to renew with WWE.
Yeah, one thing that I thought was interesting about this gamut with I think they thought this major angle would be, not that it would cause them to shoot up in the ratings, but as Dave said here, coming one day after the Stephanie turn, it was pretty well expected that Raw would do well, and it did, but not overwhelmingly. The fact is, Raw's rating actually dropped despite coming off the pay-per-view with the big angle, which should have meant close to half a point bump. The bottom line for Nitro is that people can explain away this fact all they want, but it was the lowest rated show since Russo and Ferrara came in, and the second lowest rated Nitro in the past 3 years. So what I took from that is WWE didn't get nearly the bump they thought. Their rating dropped, and because Nitro's rating was also horrible, that told me that we're at a stage now where, like, if in the mid-90s, in like 96 to 99, like till relatively recently, if one show was doing bad, people switched over to the other one. This little paragraph tells me that now when Raw is bad,
people
or
are
they don't
switching
want to
off.
see Raw, they're just switching off. They're not switching channels anymore. Now, look, that's not 100% of people, but that's telling me they're not moving in droves like crazy anymore when they hear something's happening on the other show. So, I mean, I literally just saw, like, in the wake of that McMahon documentary, Russo going on again about, the ratings I did, brother. You know, because he's going in on Bischoff again.
Of course he is.
I was like, it's such a myth. The Russo ratings bump is such a myth, and it's a very, to me, a basic intelligence test of fans. Is if they believe the shit that he and, to an extent, Bischoff spout about what they were trying to do around this time, like when Bischoff comes back in 2000, and anything they spout, if you're taking all that uncritically and going, yeah, that must be the truth, I despair. I despair. It is Observer Awards season, so we're going to have some interesting stuff to talk about the best and worst of 99 coming up, Lee, so I am looking forward to that. The Observer Awards are always something it's nice to get a snapshot of what people thought at the time before the full kind of perspective of historical kind of like placement of the year comes into effect. People trying to grade this stuff as it's just happened. But we do have some poll results this week in the Observer. What was November's best pay-per-view show? With a stonking 42% of the poll, ECW November to Remember 99. Survivor Series 99 gets 14%. Mayhem gets 10%. UFC Japan gets 4%. And They All Sucked got 30%.
I mean, I liked November to Remember, but I can't argue with They All Sucked either.
Yeah. It was definitely better than the other ones, but yeah. Who would you pick as the wrestler of the decade? Interesting. Bret Hart, 42%. It very much reflects David's readership, I think.
Yeah.
Rather than what I think the overwhelming consensus choice would be, ultimately, Steve Austin on 29%. Interestingly, Mitsuharu Misawa, way behind them on 17%. Vader with a cheeky 4%. and Liger on 8. Then we have the all-important question, Lee, that I know has been burning a hole in your pocket since the last Thunder. What did you think of Juventud Guerrera's commentary on Thunder 12-9? A, he was funny and should be a regular, 22%. I have to have a fucking word with those people.
Fucking hell.
B, he was funny, but the joke ran its course, 25%. I certainly agree with the back half of that statement. It absolutely ran its course. I don't agree that it was funny. Although I will give him, there was this thing he said on this show that did make me laugh. So I will give him that. He was average, 2%. He was bad, 24%. And my favourite, didn't watch Thunder, 27%, which won the poll.
I love that the people that didn't watch Thunder had a fucking higher vote than anything else.
Yeah. The traditional observer poll response to Armageddon, thumbs up 25, thumbs down 48, in the middle 26. Best match, Jericho versus China.
It's not even a good match.
Which is not even good, but like the next ones are McMahon versus Helmsley, which is not good, and Angle versus Steve Blackman.
Which I have no memory
worst
of.
Worst match poll, evening gown match wins. Is there anything else of significance in those polls? No, there's not. So I will move on from that. We got a couple of little updates from WCW before we move into the actual show here. The fucking wall of text, Dave. It's so hard to sift through sometimes. No matter what you hear elsewhere, at this point the company is internally going with the idea that it's Russo's game and they're giving him plenty of time. He's convinced them it's going to take 6 months before they see results in the ratings. So he's already changing. Like, again, you think about his story now is that he immediately made an impact on ratings. And you can even see him at the time in 99 making excuses why his little bump of like about 0.5
it's gone. Yeah.
is gone. It peaked up a bit last week and it's stayed there this week, but like it's still, it's not what they thought they were buying anyway. And there is truth to the idea that it will take time for the ratings to turn around, which is true, but the fact that house shows and pay-per-view haven't, and they don't take time to move, is not a good sign right now. He's citing WWF as an example, because obviously it took them a while to get cooking after like the nadir of 95.
Yeah.
It took a while to get everything in place, that it was 97, 98 before things caught fire. Where are we here? But any study of WWF during that time frame showed that before the TV ratings moved, house show attendance was growing and the top angles were hot as hell. Look, this is a thing that Dave still harps on to this day. And I mean, like, ultimately time will tell whether this is still the best rubric of how a company's business is doing, but he has maintained, as long as I've been reading Dave, that the house shows are the indication. Like, how were the live attendances? And he still talks about it to this day with AEW. And he says that, like, look, it may not be a huge part. Like, they could go on for 20, 30 years on the money they're going to make, like, between the TV rights deal, the money they have in the bank and things like that. The important metric of the business in terms of how hot it is how many tickets they're selling, and they're not. And it's the same with, like, when WWE started turning things around most recently, when the Bloodline and stuff like that caught fire, it was the first thing you could notice was the house shows that they were doing were starting to sell out. The buildings were selling out. And then everything else followed with it. So if you're looking at WWE right now, it seems like that still is a good metric.
Well, attendances are softening.
Attendances are softening now for them, but business has, like, and this is the thing, is that usually it's the canary in the coal mine, isn't it? It's like, if attendances are softening, it doesn't mean that business is going to take a downturn now. It means this is your sign that it could.
Yep.
And that, like, 6-8 months from now, you might see, like, again, to not go too far into WWE right now, but I would say, like, things starting to soften now would tell me that the post-Mania season next year will be very important for them. Because they're going to get the bump of, like, some of, like, Cena's doing his goodbye tour next year. Very good chance Rock is back for Mania, and they're moving to Netflix. All those things are going to give them a big bump in quarter one, and that's the time to kind of, whatever about the people that may be softening on going, that's the chance to convince them, no, it's still hot, stay, you know. So we'll see how that goes. There is nothing new on the Ric Flair situation. WCW has refused to release him from his contract, which expires in February 2001. The next 2 weeks should prove to be interesting for Flair, and not just from a pro wrestling standpoint, as the Republican Party in North Carolina is interested in his services.
Jesus Christ, imagine that.
But this is a period where like wrestling is so mainstream that like I think this is the year where The Rock spoke at the RNC.
Yeah.
Because I think it was the Bush Gore election where he spoke at the RNC, I think. Yeah. So, look, Stranger Things and all that, you know. And then we just got a couple of news briefs here. I think I saw a couple of little bits that I wanted to just touch on. Standards and practices really came down hard on WCW before the 12/7 Thunder tapings in Madison, Wisconsin. These are last week's tapings. There were many things done away with, but the ones that did get around were that Rhonda Singh was going to do a match against Evan Courageous for the Cruiserweight title, and if she lost, she was going to say she'd strip on TV, and Jim Duggan had a match with Asia. Standards and practices pretty well banned any more man versus woman matches or angles, which is actually good. I'm not against them or for them, because at this point, wrestling has changed so much that the fact that they're stupid, if you look at things logically, really doesn't matter, because logic is no longer a part of pro wrestling. But it's good because they were being done to death where they were no longer a novelty, and the ones in WCW were thrown in there with no good build-up, so none of them meant a thing. The Courageous versus Singh match ended up being totally scrapped, with Medusa ending up in the ring with Singh, as we all remember from watching that. So it's interesting that, yeah, the standards and practices are like, fuck you're not doing any of this bullshit. And standards and practices would have great fun with Vince Russo. The original Starrcade idea, as you might recall from us talking about this, was apparently that the Revolution, it would be Malenko, Saturn, Douglas, and Asia, and they'd face a mystery team, which would turn out to be the Varsity Club of Duggan, Mike Rotunda, Rick Steiner, and Kevin Sullivan. Not sure how that is changing, because there is no chance of Douglas being ready for the match, and now they're not allowed to use Asia anymore. As of 12/7, no one had told Steiner about the match.
Fucking hell.
WCW had a meeting with talent on 12/6, telling everyone that if they arrived late, they'd be fined. On 12/7, Luger, who doesn't like the current direction that in that it takes him lots of time to convince him to do the things he's been doing, such as the mud deal, arrived 5 hours late. Everyone is kind of waiting to see what goes down and whether, like with the drug issues, this will be a semi-work. This is another thing, like WCW is absolutely known for during the Bischoff era, during the Nash era, and now is everybody in the company assumes they're being worked by management all the time. Because Bischoff would do that.
And also, the rules do not apply to anybody that earns above 6 figures.
Yep. The Zbyszko angle and dialogue was said to be virtually entirely Zbyszko's idea, shocker, given to Russo several weeks ago. He's actually had the idea for months, long before they even got there. The plan is to get a group of older wrestlers with Arn Anderson as their manager, and they would feud with the group representing Russo. Scott Hudson was brought to the Thunder taping, but they decided to go with Juventud Guerrera on color instead of him. The only thing Guerrero was told by Russo was to go out and say what he really thinks about the wrestlers and the situations, and not to react like he'd think a wrestling announcer would react. As of the weekend, the idea seemed to be to make Guerrero, Hudson, and Tenay a regular 3-man team. Russo was apparently thrilled at the internet response, although our internet poll largely felt it was an idea that ran its course by the end of the show and wants to keep him as a regular. He is smart about one thing. Even though he's booking for a small percentage of the total audience, if he gets over as being cool with that percentage, he'll create a legend for himself as a great booking mind, even if the numbers and the profit loss of the company don't back up the portrayal in the long run, and he'll always have work in this profession. That is one of the most prophetic things I've ever read.
Wow, he fucking nailed that one, didn't he?
Yeah. He goes, see the general portrayal of Paul Heyman as a booking genius, which from a creative standpoint is not a stretch at all. At many times the company itself wasn't drawing any fans, ratings, profits, or making any money at all, but that never really hurt the perception of Heyman, and because of that he could have gotten a job with any company he wanted, even if his own company failed. Also very true. Heyman is very much like has self-styled the legend of himself as a creative genius and a business idiot. But yeah, that is basically it. It's like Russo banked hard on convincing a very, very small percentage of people that he was a booking genius, and for many years,
30 years now,
post off a reputation that didn't really exist, and get jobs in wrestling, and now getting his own job, employing himself outside of wrestling, throwing stones in over the wall at it. So yeah, just interesting clips from The Observer there to be aware of this week. Shall we talk about Thunder?
Let's get into it. Thunder 92.
Thunder 92 from Mobile, Alabama. This is the 16th of December 1999. A 2.3 rating. The first time a rating is held in quite a long time on this program. You can tell, folks, by how long we are into the show now, that we were not eager to talk about this one. And from this point on, Lee, who has been, sitting back, chipping in, a little bit sleepy, sipping his coffee there, is about to get a lot more annoyed because this show, it appears to have maybe not broken you like last week, but it appears to have enraged you from the context clues I picked up before we hit the record button.
Like this is the go home week, I suppose, for Starrcades.
Yes.
Now we've discussed this. Eric Bischoff never considered Starrcade to be the biggest show of the year,
which is fucking mental, by the way.
But everything about how they present it is Starrcade is their biggest show of the year. Which is, Eric was in charge. He could have changed that perception, but he's a moron and didn't. And so here we have not only the biggest show of the year, the last show of the fucking millennium, and the main story going into it is Goldberg and Bret Hart taking on the Outsiders, but they're not going to be facing either of the Outsiders at Starrcade. It's actually Bret versus Goldberg.
Yeah.
And
in a House of Pain stips out the arse match.
No, but even forgetting that, just the build to this Goldberg Bret Hart match has been fucking woeful.
Yeah.
And we all know where this is going, the NWO 2000. And I get that they're trying to lay it on thick that, the Outsiders are constantly involved with Bret for a reason. But they've been beating on him for fucking weeks at this point.
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett wears him out with a fucking lead pipe on this show.
Mm-hmm.
This is so fucking stupid. I'd like... We said it. Bret beat Goldberg in the tournament. Goldberg's second ever loss. And they played it up. And as I said to you, if they turned around at that point and started to build to Bret Goldberg and dropped subtle hints, and then Bret came out on that Nitro following Mayhem and said, you know what, I beat a man in the tournament, but I think he should be the number one contender.
Yeah. And
they just built to Bret versus Goldberg. I think they could have done a good number.
But they also built, they also went, all right, we're going to go the direction of, can these guys coexist as a team? But then forgot to do the bit where they can't.
Yeah, because it's never been about can they coexist. Because...
Yeah. But no, do you know what I mean? That seems to be, they go, no, we're going to do that. But it's like they ran out of runway because they did the part where they're getting along and then forgot to do the part where there's any fucking conflict between the guys that are main eventing your biggest show of the year. Yeah,
instead they're facing off against the fucking tag champs. And Jeff Jarrett, who's also in a match on the show not involving Bret Hart or Goldberg.
Do you know what will get people to buy Starrcade? If we give the guys that are wrestling each other a 5-day tag team title, right?
If I could bang my head on the table right now, I would.
And do you know who should eat the pin when they lose the titles? Is the world champion.
Yep.
and have him be pinned by somebody that isn't wrestling him for the title.
Yeah,
at the pay-per-view.
6 days before the pay-per-view. And you know what they should also do? 3 days before the pay-per-view, beat both of them.
Yeah. Make them look like idiots.
Yep.
Let's do it.
God.
Anyway.
But that's just the main event angle. There's plenty more to come.
Oh, there's so much. There's so much on this show. We just need to get running. I was so briefly relieved because it looked like it was going to be Tenay and Scott Norton together. And that is a partnership I could get behind if it wasn't interfered with. But interference is the watchword of the night.
As much as I would love Mike Tenay and Scott Norton to be a announced team, Dave, I believe you'll find
Scott Norton. Scott Hudson. I wrote Norton. Oh, I kind of do want that now.
Flash Scott Hudson.
There's too many fucking Scots in this company.
Already fucking Vince McMahon.
I don't know where like every indie wrestler was called Matt or shit like that. They all had like the same first name. Like fuck off. Anyway, clarification, by the way, during this, in case you're wondering, I know you were sitting there for weeks going, what is the master of the powerbomb match? Apropos of nothing, they just went, oh yeah, just so you guys know, there's a master of the powerbomb match and it can only be won via powerbomb.
Yep.
I'd kind of figured that out. The Outsiders attacked and jackknifed Sid on Nitro, by the way. Sid and Benoit come out and they're here to call out the Outsiders. Now, I will say, Sid was speaking some hot nonsense here. There's a lot of hot nonsense promos on this show that I didn't transcribe, but he speaks some hot nonsense. But his hot nonsense, the crowd are into it.
Sid is over. Sid is so fucking over.
No one in that building, gun to their head, could tell you what Sid said, but they loved it nonetheless.
Well, I believe Sid said they fueled a fire they can't put out.
Yes.
And they brought heavy artillery to a war they cannot win. None of that makes any sense.
Creative Control, or the collective I am now going to describe them as the Dork Squad, which is sad to say that of a faction that has La Parka in it, but when you have Kurt Hennig in his new role, fucking Shane, and the two bald idiots, it's hard not to call them a Dork Squad. I'm sorry. I will say, almost completely counterbalancing how much of a pack of losers the other four are. La Parka wearing his mask but wearing sunglasses over the mask, excellent.
La Parka gets it, man.
He gets it. I wish more people would get it in this company. Hennig says tonight Sid and Benoit have to wrestle each other or they're going to be sent home for 6 months without pay. Tenay, almost tempting fate, says thankfully Scott is with him tonight. We've got a House of Pain match. I was blown over here. Again, you want to talk about them promising something they were never going to deliver on in terms of showing something that would be logical for a pro wrestling show. I think this is the first time in 92 entries of this show where they showed a match card graphic.
They had match graphics for all of the matches on the show, Dave.
Yes, they ran down the entire card with graphics, and I'm like, are they actually good? Because this is the, as Tenay says, this is the second week of Make Thunder special again. To which I would once again argue, was it special at any stage in proceedings? Please let me know. I must have missed that episode. Yes, a match card graphic. It would be a very funny bit, and I can't rule it out that we will never see this match graphic again.
I don't think we will.
If we do, it'll be for a little while and then never again, because I don't remember, in my memory of watching this show every week around this period, I don't have strong memories of match graphics for this like I do for like Raw or SmackDown or anything. Anyway, by the way, tonight, like this is the last one that it sounds like they're trying to squeak under standards and practices. We have Jim Duggan and Midnight teaming with each other tonight. And then I wrote, all caps, Juice is back for fuck's sake. And once again, I'm wondering how smartened up Tenay is to this, because that man looks legitimately annoyed.
I love it. I'm assuming it's a running bit now, that every time somebody walks out and Tenay's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, they're coming to commentary.
Yeah. And usually he's right, they are.
Yeah.
Hey Lee, do you know what you were just saying to me the other day? Is you said, do you know what I've missed in WCW that we haven't had in quite a while? A fake Sting.
I mean, yeah, it's been at least 6 weeks.
Yeah, tell everybody what happened to poor Diamond Dallas Page here.
I mean, Diamond Dallas Page was just sitting backstage like the babyface that he is. Because he's a babyface now, Dave, by the way.
Yeah, babyface that definitely has firm and logical direction that I understand.
Yeah. Babyface Diamond Dallas Page just sitting backstage after finishing his yoga workout. And all of a sudden Sting just comes in and beats the ever-loving shit out of him. Except,
and I'll tell you, Sting was looking fucking hench here. I don't know what it was.
Except Sting all of a sudden now has long blonde hair. I mean, it makes no sense, but hey, look, Sting is an odd guy. Who are we to question the realness of Sting?
It's a shame we're a couple of months away from it, because it would have been really funny if instead of the bat, like, this Sting came in and hit him with a Bowflex. It would be pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, fake Sting attacks DDP. More on that later, I'm sad to say. Our first singles match of the night. A match that, like, it may be the first time it's happened, but it feels like I've seen it 12 times.
No way, it's just the first time this match happened.
It's Buff Bagwell versus Vampiro. Scott, accused of being on the take from Oklahoma, because he starts his match by running down the accolades of Dr. Death, who is not here. In a few seconds he is, but he's not right now.
So the bell literally rings as, like, the two guys start circling each other.
Oh, man.
The bell rings, and the camera pans to Oklahoma at ringside.
He's already there.
It's fucking hilarious, because it's so shit.
Yeah.
They can't have any bit of wrestling on this show without somebody else being involved.
Yeah. Can I just say, between when the camera went live for the start of this segment and the bell ringing to start the match, there had been 2 run-ins. Because Hoovy ran out on commentary, and then Oklahoma runs out as the bell rings.
Also,
and this would form a theme of the night. There is no match on this show for which, like, it might even be 2+ people in every single segment. I'm not sure. There might be a segment where only one person runs out. But every single match on this show has an additional person come out and get involved.
And you know what's hilarious is the laziest person involved in this match is Vampiro.
Yeah.
Vampiro here in his fucking Tetsuya Naito fucking tribute gear of wearing a t-shirt and just not bothering his hole to take it off.
Yeah. Vampiro, like, this is an all-time coming to the company and already mentally checking out. Now, to be fair, like, what's funny about Vampiro is that I remember the period, like, coming up in 2000 where he's pushed quite, like, not at a world champion level, but he's like a pushed act in the company. I don't remember this long period of time we've been covering so far where this guy was losing possibly more than half the matches he was wrestling.
I was so excited when he showed up because I was like, oh yeah, shit, Vampiro, he gets a good push. He fucking didn't.
No, not yet. Anyway, like, I thought in my head, like I said, it was immediate.
Yeah.
But, like, this is still, like, this is what?
I don't think he's won a match.
Months. No, he did, because he beat Berlin straight away, remember?
Oh, that's right, he did, yeah. And and Hoovy accuses him of taking his finisher.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Vampiro, or is mainly Buff on top, and then Vampiro goes out to confront Oklahoma.
Hang on, there was no wrestling. I refuse to believe there was any wrestling here.
There actually was, would you believe it? Maybe about 20 seconds of it. But he goes out to confront Doc, and then I don't know what happened, Lee. I literally blinked my eyes, and Doc was there, and then also Jerry Only was there. Now we're at 4 people. We're at 4 people in about 45 seconds.
So Vampiro goes over to Oklahoma.
If you get Vampiro, by the way, who is like getting his ass kicked, goes, yo, I'm going to start a secondary fight.
So he goes over to Oklahoma. Doc then taps Vampiro on the shoulder, and Vampiro looks at Doc without doing anything. And then Jerry Only taps Doc on the shoulder, who turns around and looks at Jerry Only without doing anything. And they're all just fucking frozen. And like,
Like a
what
fucking
the fuck is
Hanna-Barbera
this?
cartoon or something. Yeah. And then it just cuts back to the ring really awkwardly. And oh my god, right. Buff is sitting on one turnbuckle. On the...
Dave!
Sorry, Lee just immediately did like the see no evil emoji monkey. Like both hands went up onto his face as soon as I said turnbuckle. You forgot about this.
No,
bit,
no,
didn't
I
you?
remembered because I'm so fucking annoyed. Vampiro is literally on the opposite turnbuckle. And
The diagonally opposite
Yes,
one.
diagonal.
Literally the furthest turnbuckle away.
Oklahoma has not yet interfered, and Buff has climbed the turnbuckle.
Yeah.
So they are literally 15 foot away from each other, and Buff is in position to hit his finisher.
Yeah. So then eventually Oklahoma gets up. He hits him with the sauce bottle?
He
Is it?
does something I don't fucking know.
Yeah. He hits with the sauce bottle. Because he's so far away, he has to bump off the top turnbuckle, then stumble up to 10 feet
Yeah.
into a blockbuster.
I wish Bagwell had went, did I do a good job? Because no, you didn't, Buff. Nobody involved
And
in this
yet-
fucking segment did.
Again, Vampiro beaten again by another guy who, like, this is the thing as well, is like, right, so do you know the other thing people always say about Russo is like, well, at least everyone's got a storyline. This opening match is by two people who are completely fucking directionless. Like, he had about 2 weeks worth of, Buff's storyline is that he's shooting on the company. Or, you know, he's using insider terms, which is not a fucking storyline. It's just annoying. And Vampiro, I guess his thing was, you're in the Misfits now.
Well,
And we're, like, again, a few weeks into this, and that's already completely fucking run out of steam.
Well, I told you what I know what Buff's next direction is because I remember the builds to Sold Out very well. And Buff's direction becomes he's fucking Kimberly Page.
Yep. Which is maybe the third time in the last 6 months somebody has had the I'm fucking Kimberly Page storyline.
Well, no, see, Scott Steiner's was I want to. Not that he was.
Yes. Well, then we had Gormless Idiot David Flair was I'm being offered,
Yes.
but I let my dad do it.
And now it was Buff Bagwell all along, apparently.
Yeah. Fuck's sake. Right, we have a clip of Evan Courageous inexplicably walking around backstage with Spice.
Yeah.
What a difference a week makes, eh? Then we have DDP looking for Sting, the only man in World Championship Wrestling who believes that was Sting that did that to him. And then we get the artist formerly known as Prince Ikea, the Flatpack Sovereign, with Gene, and Paisley is now speaking for him. And this, I will say, like I said, for him, because it's him, it sucks. But the entrance, I think, is like really well shot. Like I said last week when he does his entrance, that's one good decision they made. It's a shame they didn't put on a better wrestler. The other good decision they made for his character is for Paisley to speak, because even though she's not like, she is not like accustomed to being on TV in a speaking role at this stage, she is prime Ric Flair on the microphone compared to him.
Yeah.
She just radiates a kind of natural charisma that even if she's not completely smooth, she feels like somebody that was meant to do something like this, as opposed to somebody who feels thrust into like everything. And maybe this is something I haven't really hit on before. Like everything about IKEA is awkward and has no belief in himself, no confidence. And like when he tries to act cocky, when he's done like various kind of like phases as a heel over the time we've been talking about it, it just rings like a performance of confidence as opposed to heel confidence.
Yeah, well, I fully agree with you. I mean, there's fucking 4 years of evidence of us shitting on IKEA. He's just never gotten any better.
Not the shop.
No, not
Incredible
the
meatballs.
shop. Great shop. But the wrestler. Yeah, and I mean, look, next match is Evan Courageous and the Artist, and I have it in my notes here. Courageous is already by far a better wrestler than IKEA,
and he's still quite green.
And he's very,
but he
green.
has you can see improvement in Evan Courageous in the maybe it's 6 months on the air.
He started coming out as a jobber and stuff. Yeah.
Whereas we've been watching IKEA since Thunder started, and he was on WCW TV before Thunder started, and he has not improved at all.
Nope.
And yes, you can put a little bit of that down to he may be the most stop-start wrestler of all time. And we talked about how the funniest bit in the history of wrestling might be repackage IKEA and have him lose straight away. It is very funny, but it is like he's going to be a victim of that. Like, no one will ever take him seriously. But even if you take all that, the kind of popularity, the crowd reactions and stuff like that, the kind of context out of it, mechanically he has not improved one bit.
No, he hasn't.
He should be at the level of experience now where he's leading good matches and having, touching the idea of having a really good match with the right opponent.
A good TV match, yeah, but he's just not capable of it.
He is not capable of it. They show Spice pinning Medusa on Monday, even though they were both fully, and I mean fully, under the ropes.
They were almost outside of the ring.
There was they're quite slender women, so it is more of their bodies were directly under the ropes than not. Incredible. I've never seen a more blatant under the ropes shouldn't have been. Oh my god. Because I think this is one thing that, it's WCW, so why do I care? But I think it is the flagrant ignorance of the basic logic of how pro wrestling is supposed to work that is going to drive me insane. This kind of stuff where DQs happen that shouldn't. People are pinning wrestlers in matches they're not in. People getting full pinfalls when they're under the ropes. There's also Kevin Nash is guilty of that later on. Kevin Nash scores a pinfall to win the tag team titles from Bret Hart while half his body is under the ropes on the same Nitro. That kind of stuff is going to eat at me in a way that I probably shouldn't let it, but here we are anyway.
Look, there was so much rope coverage on that show that it was probably better off being cast as a 50 Shades of Grey movie.
Hello. 30 seconds, right? Now, it can't have been more than 30 seconds. It might have been less into the match, and Medusa is out to confront both Spice and Paisley. Then just fully gets in the ring.
To treat him.
So does Paisley. So does Spice. They all get in a schmoz while Evan has a visual pin on the Prince. Evan gets up, complains to the women, and gets rolled up. And Hoovy only learns at this moment that it wasn't a title match because he starts going, new champion, and they're like, no, it's not. Fuck.
Awful.
Awful. And it wasn't the worst finish on the show either.
No, not even close.
DDP and the actual Sting are brawling backstage, and then I do like this. There was great camera work. The camera panned up very slightly, and you see the blonde fake Sting just freeze and go, "Oh shit, he's seen me," and then start running away.
Again, Lex Luger, man, he's carrying the show.
It's great that we're reading in the Observer that he doesn't really want to do any of this, but this is the most into him I've been this entire time. He's comedy gold. We next have the match you've definitely been looking forward to, obviously, the mixed tag team match of Jim Duggan and Midnight, main event anywhere in the country, versus Asia and Perry Saturn, with Dean Malenko and Shane Douglas already out at ringside before the match started, by the way.
It's funny that you read the Observer bit where Standards and Practices decided to come down on the man versus woman violence, because the literal first note I have first sentence in my notes here, there is so much man versus woman violence in this match.
Yeah, also there's the basic logic thing of they do the lights out Midnight gong, and then Midnight appears in the ring when the lights go up. She gets the fucking Sabu entrance, which is extremely funny. But how logically that just doesn't, it makes no sense that she would come in there when the entire Revolution are in the ring and then try to fight all of them by herself.
Yep.
And then Janitor Duggan comes out very quickly, hoofs the Revolution flag out of the ring. Shane replaces Hoovy on commentary by force, which is a marginal improvement, I will say. He's very tropey and very repetitive on commentary, Shane Douglas, but he's much more bearable, at least, because he's not fucking shrilly screaming. Like, Hoovy alternates between two settings, where he's like right up in the mic like this, and he's shouting and he's popping his levels, and then he's back here like this, and you can barely hear what he's saying. All the while, like, drifting in and out of consciousness.
Well, I mean,
so at least Shane is consistent.
That'll be the drugs.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but Hoovy may or may not have like the substance or two.
I didn't say I didn't know why he was doing it. We all know why. You heard the Marge Simpson meme. I mean, he's right, but he didn't have to say it. We were all thinking it, Lee. None of us were thinking, oh, it was like his office chair, like, sliding around, or did he have an inner ear imbalance and he was swaying away from the microphone?
Now, look,
God.
he was probably right considering what we've had to sit through.
Look. That's what part of me, when you said that, was like, are you suggesting that that's what I do during this show? Because I'm not against it. Saturn is, God bless him, Perry Saturn obviously must have a huge amount of respect for Jim Duggan, because he's bumping and selling like a madman for Jim Duggan here, and it has absolutely doesn't have to. Asia tags in. Harlem Heat just walk out as the heels have the heat on Midnight. Shane Douglas runs out to attack Duggan. He accidentally hits Saturn with the cast. Dean tries to break the cover with the 2x4. Duggan, with spectacular ease, disarms Dean Malenko, beans Saturn on the head, and beats the Revolution single-handedly because the girls had brawled to the back. Then the lads beat up and strip Duggan down to his Stars and Stripes boxers as their music tries to play them off the stage. And then Aaron Neville runs out to make the save.
Yeah.
Grand so. Just for your record, I believe that 2 extra people had come out to be involved in the match when the match started. Then 2 more people, then Aaron Neville. For a total of 5 in this match.
I preferred Adrian Neville myself, but
indeed. Then we have Gormless Idiot David Flair fingering a headless Teddy Stump. I don't think I need to elaborate much more on that. I do think, and I'll talk about it during his match in a bit. I'll leave it for now. Sting wandering around backstage hitting stuff. We have now moved the evolution of the Sting character in 2.5 years, nearly, just over 2 years of Thunder. It has gone from he has a bat and he's sad to he has a bat and he's mad. And if that isn't that's storytelling,
yeah, that's storytelling.
I don't know what is.
Yeah. But sadly, he has lost his duster.
Yes. If it was not already apparent, Lex was the fake Sting. It is fairly just, they say it on commentary at this stage.
What?
I know, right? I know. We have a WCW hardcore title match as Norman Smiley defends against David Flair. I wrote, I like how every couple of weeks they're just adding additional props to this dumb fuck's gimmick. So, like, he was crazy. Then he was crazy with a crowbar. Then he was crazy and wanking off the crowbar. Now he's crazy with a crowbar he wanks off and he has a headless teddy bear. Like, what next? He's like the Carrot Top of wrestling, except worse in every measurable way. At least fucking Carrot Top was jacked. Do you remember when there was that photo of him after he got jacked? Mm-hmm. It was like, fuck, you know?
Hang on, who are you to say David Flair is not jacked?
Oh, by the way, he's not. But he's also added He's added the psychopathic grin, or he's trying to his like hollow eyes and bear. But his grin, like, it doesn't come off as psychopath. Like, I don't know what it comes off as. It doesn't come off as psychopath. It does come off like weird, but not in the way that like he's intending. It just go like, that's a weird man.
It comes
like
off.
That's a man you wouldn't sit beside on the bus, kind of thing.
It comes
like
off.
a man who's wearing a trench coat and nothing underneath it.
It comes off as Daddy wasn't around much when I was growing up.
Yeah, which, look, I mean, live the gimmick, I guess. So Flair grabbed a can. Oh my god! I can't read. When he grabs the trash can and he does a flip bump holding the trash can onto nothing because he's crazy, you see. He then dances behind a wiggling Norman Smiley, which got a reaction from the crowd, and I was just disappointed in Mobile, Alabama on this evening. I was like, you need to uphold the standard of your greatest son, the big shot Bob Holly, when you're when you're a crowd.
Kick defensive people in the head.
Yeah, you didn't live up to that tonight, Mobile. I'm sorry. Beans him in the head with a trash can lid. Then Meng just runs out and tears apart the bear after Norman threw it to him, and the match just ends.
Yep.
No finish, not a disqualification, not a count out.
Meng was the finish.
Yeah, Meng chases Norman off, and David loses what was left of his mind. And my favorite thing, and it really speaks to the Russo did just tell Hoovy to speak his real opinions, where Hoovy earnestly turns around to Scott Hudson and goes, guys, what was the point of this match? So that was one of two pops that Hoovy gave me on this show. His other one later is exceptional as well, but that was good.
Fair enough.
He had a moment of lucidity. Obviously, there must have been a Sting segment next because I just wrote bat, mad.
Yeah, I just have Sting still has a bat.
Yeah. Norman is screaming and running through the car park and he's gone. Sting comes out and Hoovy is trying to sing along to Seek and Destroy, but he doesn't know the lyrics.
As he's saying, I know who this is.
Well.
I know who this is.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, you can tell this guy knows exactly who he shouldn't be burying because people like him and Kurt Hennig, he's just like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Everybody else is fair game, though. Sting calls out Lex. Juice says, are you ready to see some real juice? Blonde Lex Sting attempts a sneak attack. Sting beats on him to get little reaction. Like, the crowd is like, what the fuck is going on here?
Sting on Sting violence, and nobody wants to see that.
So you can't even have a promo segment without two run-ins, because like Lex runs in to interrupt the promo because he's being called out, and then Liz runs out to interrupt them fighting. And as Sting attempts to rack the package, which, to be fair, is an impressive feat because he's like a bulky dude, and like Sting isn't known at this stage in his career. Like, obviously he was a much bigger dude back at the Surfer Sting days. He's leaned out by the Crow period, so this is an impressive feat that he's starting to do this. But he spins around and his package's legs hit Liz. Lex beats Sting with the bat rather than look after Liz. They talk about how basically it's not literally this, but it's effectively a Liz on a pole match is happening at the pay-per-view, and I'm very surprised she wasn't. But that is what it essentially is. It's they are wrestling for custody of Liz.
It's Liz's contract is up for grabs, I believe.
Yes. It's a metaphorical Liz on a pole match. Package, I do love seeing Package in full face paint getting into his car. But even better than that, and I think the intentional comedy was him in full face paint making an escape. What I don't think was the intentional comedy is that the camera stayed on a little too long and showed that Lex Luger can't do a 3-point turn.
He very gently reversed and then had to,
He very gently reversed and then had to bail out and reposition. Yeah. There's no way that's too subtle to have been a deliberate bit of comedy. I think he's just shit at driving.
I mean, he's so large.
Next up, we have the match that I'm sure everybody was clamoring to see on Thunder, and that's Dr. Death Steve Williams versus The Wall. I wrote, this match, again, makes no sense, as they're kind of trying to give a little push to both of them, so they really shouldn't be beating either of them, and yet here we are. Doc slamming the wall was a cool visual. Like that's a strong boy. Runs into a corner boot and a follow-up big boot because the poor Wall is so green he only has like 3 moves and 2 of them are choke slam and boot. Then they cut to, because again, I should mention that again, talk about there can't just be a singles match in this show. Berlin and Oklahoma are already out and involved by the time the match starts. And as if that wasn't enough people crammed into this segment, the camera cuts into the crowd and fucking Chavo is selling stuff out of his suitcase to fans. And that's where I wrote, not one match has happened without at least one additional person emerging during the course of said match. Oklahoma and Berlin have a confrontation outside because, of course, this is Vince Russo, so the least interesting thing about a wrestling match is the wrestling match. There must be bells and whistles going on outside at all times. Which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, Lee, because, like, there's going to be no reaction for the wrestling if you're constantly running things outside of the ring that are distracting people from the wrestling. Anyway, Oklahoma was attempting to use his boot to have an effect on the match by hitting the wall. Berlin hits Doc by causes a massively dumb disqualification because it's blatantly in the view of the referee. Now, what I will say is I will allow this one, personally, because at least that plays into the story where Berlin is kind of sabotaging the Wall but trying to act like he's not. Although they are really jumping several chapters in that story because they should have done a nice long run where they were established as a partnership for a start. And then they have the thing where Wall is starting to get
organically over.
And starting to get more over. Like, that's how you build. Now, the Wall would eventually get over, but thanks in no part to the way they're doing this, I'll tell you that. The Wall is livid. Wall punches Berlin off the apron. Doc clotheslines Wall over the top, and Doc's music plays. Whatever. Terrible. Dustin Rhodes backstage. He lost his hat. Never mentioned again. He's just opening doors and saying, "Have you seen my hat?"
Hat and jacket.
It. Yeah. Oh, we should have mentioned as well that maybe in the Russo era, we have already had a brawl backstage, which is the other, like, you cut to a brawl backstage. So we had the Lex, the fake Sting brawl. So
yes,
we've hit that other Russo trope on this show already. We should have mentioned. Jeff Jarrett. They have a clip from Nitro, and I didn't look this up as a point. Jeff Jarrett is shown in a bunkhouse brawl because he's going to be wrestling Dustin Rhodes in one at the pay-per-view. So he had a tune-up bunkhouse brawl, I guess, on Nitro. The editing in this recap is so bad, I legitimately don't know who he was wrestling.
It was Chris Benoit.
It was Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was Chris Benoit because that's how badly it was edited. Or maybe somebody in the editing booth is a friend of Chris Benoit and they were like, you know what, I'm going to make sure people don't see you having to sell for Jeff Jarrett. Then we had Dustin coming out and attacking him. Then we had the trio of Mr. Wonderful, Arn, and Larry teaming up to beat up Creative Control. We had the David and the Teddy segment where I think is it Gene or Tenay? Tenay touches Teddy and he freaks out. Liz stops Lex using the crowbar. Then we have Brett getting taken out backstage. So even in recaps, we have backstage brawls and attacks. Goldberg taking on the Outsiders solo, but then Brett hobbles out. They take out his leg, and Brett, who is the world champion, eats a pin to a man that was under the ropes when he did so. Don't think I missed anything there. Dog shit. Buzzkill is getting a petition signed. We're back to Thunder now, by the way. Buzzkill is getting a petition signed, like, outside the building, with a sign that says "No nukes," and the commentators are burying him, saying that fucker doesn't even know what his petition is about, and neither do we. So that can all fuck off.
I just
get Goldberg taping up.
I was just going to say, I don't think he's a fan of Duke Nukem.
Maybe he believed that Duke Nukem Forever would actually come out by its proposed release date, and he was just heartbroken. 3D Realms were just fucking him around. God damn it, George Broussard. Next up, we have Dustin Rhodes versus Kurt Hennig with Shane in tow. Tanay lets us know, finally, over an hour into the show, that, that main event tonight, we should probably tell you what the rules are. The House of Pain requires you to handcuff both of your opponents to the cage, at which point Scott Hudson says the match will be over, but then the carnage will begin. Dustin says Jeff Jarrett will never forget his name. Immediately sets Shane up and hits him with the move formerly known as the Shattered Dreams. Sorry.
You forgot the best part of Dustin's promo.
I probably didn't.
Apparently Jarrett had brought up Dustin's fat daddy on Nitro.
Yes, bloated daddy, I think he called him.
And Dustin said, well, I'll be your fat daddy at the pay-per-view.
Yep.
He said that.
Chilling, really.
Yeah.
Chilling, but not even the most chilling thing that happens in this match. Kurt jumps him. Juice says Hennig is the man who knows what side his bread is buttered on. We get a minute into this match when spooky pedo music starts. And yes, that's right. As if a fake Sting was not enough, we now have a fake 7. The lights come up immediately. El Kabonk, because it's Jeff Jarrett dressed as the spooky pedophile.
I love that Jeff Jarrett stole Dustin Rhodes' hat and duster, and yet still felt the need to put on the white face paint.
Yeah, because, well, here's the thing as well, is like Dustin Rhodes is trying to distance himself from the 7 character. So it makes no sense that he was looking for the 7 hat backstage earlier.
I think we're supposed to believe that is in fact Dustin Rhodes' actual hat, and not Seven's hat.
That's his shoot hat.
It's a shoot Rhodes hat.
Shoot hat worked pedophile. Make sure you get that one right, guys.
Christ.
Yeah, you don't want to mix that up. I feel so bad for Dustin, man. Like, this man does not deserve this.
I was gonna say something I'm not gonna say.
He came out to have a match on television, and he got his hat stolen, and he got attacked by the ghost of his own paedophile. Like, that's materially what happened in this match. Like, that is what transpired.
Oh God!
Haunted by a supernatural sex pest, and then ate a fucking guitar. You okay, pal?
No. So many jokes.
The match is thrown out. Jeff's music plays, and he beats Dustin down some more.
Great music.
Jeff Jarrett, by the way, appears twice more on this show and does not wash off the white face paint the entire time.
Now, the next time he appears is fucking fantastic.
Now, because this is the other thing. Jeff in ghostly white face paint, reminiscent of said spooky pedophile, feels like something that should be considered offensive, but it technically isn't.
We go to a break after the segment, and they come back with Gene interviewing Jeff Jarrett, still in the face paint, but now he has the coloured sunglasses on.
Yeah. Now, I should say,
fantastic.
He needs to talk to Sting. Needs to talk to Sting, because this face paint stayed on his head this whole show. Not 1 ounce of drip or bleed or anything like that. Whereas Sting's, like, by the time he's in the ring, half of it is gone. Yeah, he said, a bunkhouse brawl isn't for old timers like him and his bloated daddy. He doesn't care. He can bring anything to the match, including his mama's cowbell. He'll kick his ass. And he said, just because, again, it's a Vince Russo show, so we have to tick the box of an insider term. He goes, I kicked your ass with your own gimmick. Then we have RP referee arriving in his limo, as all referees do.
90 minutes into the show.
Yes. On the week where it's in the Observer about how people shouldn't be arriving late.
Yep.
We have what turns out to be a handicap match. But first, Sid and Benoit come out and they say, do you know what? We're not going to wrestle each other. Sid says, we don't mind 6 months off, but let's make it a nice going away party. They want to fight the powers that be, and they lead a crowd chanting it. Hennig comes out and says, you're not getting that. You're getting a handicap match against the 5 of us. So it's La Parca, Creative Control, Kurt Hennig, and Shane against Chris Benoit and Sid Vicious.
I think we should call them the collective, the Power Goons.
Yeah. The Power Goons?
Yeah.
I could do Power Goons. Yeah, let's do Power Goons. So, I love that 3 of them run down and distinctly lazy Patrick and Gerald just walk very slowly to the ring. Shane gets powerbombed almost immediately. LaParker gets chokeslammed. CC get beaten down. Sid goes for Hennig. Benoit gets a ladder. He sets it up in the ring to climb to nothing, and Creative Control jump him. But he does a thing that you don't see done very often. I know Eddie used to do it, doing the forward roll under the ladder when there's a ladder involved. He does the forward ladder, pops up, and shoves the ladder into both their heads. Now, bear in mind, the referee sees this. Nothing happens. He locks the crossface on one of the ball bastards. Hennig and the other one then hit when Benoit gets back up after it's broken. They hit him in the face with a ladder. That's a DQ then. Not when Benoit blatantly hit 2 people with a ladder, but when 2 people hit Benoit with a ladder, it's a DQ. Grand. Heels then beat Sid and Benoit down. Great.
All the baby faces are made to look like fucking morons on the show, so.
Piper calls himself the thorn in the powers that be. It really feels, it's just crazy that, like, it's obviously trying to push towards what will ultimately become Millionaires Club versus New Blood. But this real misreading of, like, which old-timers people want to see take on the Authority Steve Austin style. Like, I don't think people are happy to see Roddy Piper, but I don't think people are clamoring to see Roddy Piper be the lead anti-Authority figure here.
Nope.
Or Larry Zbyszko, for that matter. So it sounds like he cuts this rambling, completely insane promo where, and I know because we then watched the main event, it sounds like he was saying he's going to be the ref in the main event, but I wrote, who can say?
I think he said he's the gatekeeper.
Yes, of the House of Fame. And even Hoovy at the end of the promo had to question whether Roddy Piper was the full shilling. We then had a singles match. Diamond Dallas Page versus Champagne Chris Kanyon. I love Chris Kanyon so much. What I didn't love was that this is the debut of Jay Biggs.
Yep.
The former Clarence Mason. Now, Clarence Mason had been off TV since he had left WWF in 97, end of 97. And this is his first appearance here on Thunder to no fanfare whatsoever.
He's now a sports agent.
He is also, again, in the classic thing, wrestling loves to put a manager with somebody that doesn't need one. Chris Kanyon, the Champagne Chris Kanyon thing was like cocky enough and fun enough that they didn't need this sports agent gimmick going on with it. And yeah, this isn't great, but it actually is probably cinema compared to the people he would team up with a few months down the line.
Yeah. Do you know what caught me off guard?
What?
Is that Champagne Chris Kanyon refers to himself as CCK.
Yes, I did write that down. Yeah, nobody can beat CCK. Young Chris Brooks noting this in his...
So it's the Calamari Catch Canyons.
Yes. DDP slaps him as Jay Biggs runs Hudson off commentary. Hoovy is appalled, by the way, even though he's not the one that's taken off commentary. He's like, this is my table. What are you doing? Everybody is shouting at each other on commentary, so you almost completely miss that DDP hits an unbelievable Uranagi early on in this match. Chris low blows DDP right in front of the ref. Grand. No disqualification there. Biggs talks about his client being up for the 99 Oscars, which you may note, it's December. The Oscars happened over 6 months previously. Kanyon whips DDP, heads to a reversal. Kanyon scores a sit-out Alabama Slammer for 2. Hoovy, in a line that absolutely got me, starts referring to him as Shampoo Chris Kanyon. Fucking gold. fantastic.
Yeah, it was good. He says it a couple of times. He actually says it, and I think he realizes it's good because he keeps going back to it.
Yeah. He was really happy with himself. You could tell. Shampoo Chris Kanyon is excellent. Tornado Lariat for 2 from DDP. Biggs gets up on the apron. Page bonks them together and rolls up for 2. We get backslide attempts. Kanyon turns into the cutter. Gormless idiot David Flair appears from fat air and hits him in the head with the crowbar. Ref counts to 9. Kanyon gets one hand on Page and wins. And then Bam Bam Bigelow comes out and he's livid with Robinson. Because yes, we had all completely forgotten about the triad except for Bam Bam Bigelow, who I had forgotten was still there. Shoves over Kanyon, and then Kanyon breaks the champagne bottle on Bammer's head. This was the one that for the longest time it didn't seem like anybody additional was going to interfere in the match, and then 2 people right at the end.
Yep.
Do you enjoy this one, yeah?
Do you know what? It was actually a somewhat of a good match because, it's CDP and Kanyon.
Yeah.
But there was so much going on around it that you would, couldn't be blamed for not realizing that it was actually a decent little match.
Yeah. They were the only people that got like a little stretch of a couple of minutes to do some wrestling.
Yeah.
I was so mad at the Flair bit. It's just like, fuck's sake. Like, I thought we'd already gotten through our dose of the medicine on this show.
Nope.
Anyway, Creative Control are mad at Piper. He hits them both with a pipe and then bullies a man in Gorilla to play his music. The thing that exposes the business a little bit here is that while he's doing that, he hits the pipe off a trunk, and it sure sounds like a plastic pipe, not a lead pipe, as they keep describing it when he does that. Then we get Brett warming up and Nash walking into the Outsiders' locker room looking for Scott. We come back from the break, and Gene has word of a brutal assault on Scott Hall in the dressing room, who was definitely there in the building.
He definitely did not no-show this event.
Definitely not. This leads us to the main event, such as it was, the World Tag Team title House of Pain match, the Outsiders, allegedly, versus Bret Hart and Goldberg. The cage is down. The gatekeeper himself, RP referee, comes out. Another night of Nash just looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Like, looked super mad to be involved in any of this. And I don't know how much of it was Scott not being there, him having to wrestle at all, or the fact that he was having to be platformed to Jeff Jarrett being the real star of this segment.
Well, Dave, if you were just 2 days away from having a heart attack, I don't think you'd want to be on Thunder either. Right?
So sad. Prayers up. We get a replay of Nash sneaking in to pin Brett on Monday. I wrote feet and legs under the ropes. It really made Goldberg look stupid because he snuck in as Goldberg was beating on Scott and had him up for the sledgehammer, or the jackhammer. And it's really funny because, like, there's no way did he not hear the ref trying to count the pin. Like, there's no way apart from the man is an idiot to explain that away.
Who are you to judge what Goldberg can and can't hear?
Speaking of Goldberg not being able to hear things and looking like an idiot, during his walkout, Creative Control and Jeff Jarrett attack Piper. Goldberg still does all of his walkout, and then about halfway down the ramp is like, oh shit, then starts sprinting, and he helps Piper fight them off. He rips the door off the cage, which I'm always a sucker for ripping a door off a cage. From Kane, anybody doing it, like, great. Mark Henry did it once as well, didn't he? Yeah, Goldberg's done it a couple of times. Nash hit Goldberg with the belt. He completely no-sold it. Piper hits Nash with the pipe. Jarrett hits Piper, then Goldberg with guitars. Just so many fucking balsa wood guitars on this show.
Goldberg no-sells the guitar.
He does. He kills the guitar bit by immediately spearing him. He takes a knee and then pops up and spears him. Goes for the jackhammer, but Nash hits him with the pipe. Brett gets handcuffed. The world champion, by the way, is the first person to be completely disarmed and helpless in this segment. Goldberg is then handcuffed. The match is now supposed to be over, but no bell rings. They then pick up Piper. They handcuff him facing the cage. Start hitting all of them. Hall obviously nowhere to be found. Jarrett just beating on all 3 of them to end the show. There's a bit where Goldberg breaks out of the handcuffs, which is another spot he would repeat in WCW. But the heels are already out of Dodge by the time that happens. And that's the end of your go-home show for Starrcade 99. An absolute wet fart. The thing that they've built at the end of the show, your last visual, is Goldberg staring down Kevin Nash and Jeff Jarrett, neither of whom is he wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the show? What do you think of the main event first?
It's so... First of all, Scott Hall no-shows the event. Just fucking change the booking.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cared if Goldberg and fucking Brett won the tag titles. Mm-hmm. Secondly, they put no emphasis, like not an ounce of emphasis, on the world title that's involved in the world title match on Sunday.
Yep.
They didn't mention that Piper will in fact be the referee for Sunday. So, you know, one of those things that, you know, is normally used to sell pay-per-views of having a special ref that's a big name star. Yeah. They don't mention it.
No. Sure, why would you? No need to.
Sid, who is facing Kevin Nash, allegedly, on Sunday, doesn't interact with Kevin Nash at all on this show.
No need.
Jeff Jarrett, who is facing Dustin Rhodes, interacts with everybody on the show.
Yeah. He's in 6 feuds at once, this guy.
Fucking... Oh, God. I'm just so annoyed. So annoyed that this is how they built... Sorry, I shouldn't say they. How fucking Vince fucking Russo built to the biggest pay-per-view of the year. The last of the millennium. And this is the fucking bullshit he's putting out.
Yeah. I mean, I can believe it.
He put the belt on the wrestler of the 90s, according to the Observer.
Yeah.
At the last pay-per-view. Just let him fucking wrestle.
Yeah. That's all people want, you know? Anyway.
Fucking idiot.
So I think that pretty much gives your overall thoughts on the show in one there. But who are your winners and losers? A task that's getting harder by the week.
I mean, Jeff Jarrett is the big fucking winner here because Jeff Jarrett is everywhere on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, Sid's reaction at the start of the show was pretty fucking great as well. But I'm a broken record in that Sid is the one... Well, Goldberg is still over to an extent. But Sid is the one person they've brought in the past fucking 2 years that is just over like fuck. And again, they are just going out of their way to not do something fucking positive with him.
Yeah.
Losers, I don't know. Fucking, like, what have they got Sting doing? What have they got fucking DDP doing? Like, everything else is so fucking confused on this.
Vampiro. Yeah, you name them, and they had a bad showing on this, apart from Jarrett.
Mm-hmm.
Is it any wonder that Jarrett would have undying loyalty to that man until he was burned way too many times?
Yeah. And I mean,
anyway,
I like Jarrett, and I like Jarrett in WCW. It's just, it's too much. It's already too much.
Yeah. It's the classic thing that our good friend Garrett Kidney always says. Jeff Jarrett's entertainment level is directly relational to how far up the card he's pushed. Mm-hmm. The higher up the card he is, the less entertaining it is because he's being forced down your throat. The role he's in now in AEW, for example, perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway, the finish counter brought to you by Ludwig Borga. We have a first, Lee. I'm pretty sure. 9 matches, no clean finishes.
That's definitely a first because we would have remembered if it had happened before.
3 disqualifications, 5 interference leading directly to a finish, and one
Mang.
non-finish
One Mang.
via bear murder.
But one Mang.
Yes.
Oh, let's do it.
We come to it.
Come on.
It's the go-home show. For those of you who it's your first pay-per-view cycle with us in Days of Thunder, the custom on the go-home show is to get Lee, based on our viewing of Thunder, to tell me the whole pay-per-view card. See how well WCW did promoting this show, right? Now, Lee, I believe you have an admission to make that may give you a little bit of an advantage in this particular month.
Yeah, so one of the only WCW pay-per-view VHSs that I owned as a young person was in fact Starrcade 1999. I have seen this card many, many times.
Yeah. Now, what'll be very funny is if, in spite of that, because the booking is so bad and WCW is so off-putting, you still can't remember a lot of it.
I guarantee that's what's going to happen here.
Okay.
Because a lot of stuff changes.
Also, I will give you the customary hint. I will tell you how long the card is. Mm-hmm. There are 13 matches on Starrcade 1999.
Yes, there are. So let's throw it out first of all. First of all, Scott Hall no shows the event again.
Yeah.
So
that is not written on the match card. So
Scott Hall versus Chris Benoit does in fact not happen.
Yeah.
There is a ladder match for the US title, but it is not Chris Benoit Scott Hall.
Yes.
Kevin Nash also no shows the event, as he claims he was having a heart attack.
Well, again, I will defer to you, but it is listed that he does wrestle.
Oh, maybe it's sold out then he misses. There is one of these pay-per-views that he says he does not show up for a match with Sid's because he is sure he was having a heart attack.
It was Starrcade 97.
Oh, that was the Giant. Sorry, I'm getting my...
Yeah, it was the Giant, yeah.
My Powerball matches conflated.
Yeah. You're about to review Starrcade 97 for a third time there.
Okay, so the Powerball match does happen.
Now, did he mentally attend the show? We'll find out.
That means
he was physically in the building, though.
That means, no. Okay, that makes sense. Right. So I'll start running down this card.
It was a fucking mess, by the way. This is gonna be hard for me to keep track of.
Okay, so first of all, main event: Bret Hart versus Goldberg with Roddy Piper.
Yes.
US title match: Chris Benoit versus Jeff Jarrett.
Yes.
Ladder match.
Semi-main, by the way, for a replacement match.
Jeff Jarrett versus Dustin Rhodes in a bunkhouse match.
That is 3.
The Revolution versus the Varsity Club.
That is 4.
Fuck. What else was on this fucking show? Oh, Evan Courageous versus Medusa.
That is 5.
Vampiro versus Dr. Death.
That is 6.
David Flair versus DDP.
That is 7.
Norman Smiley versus Mang.
That is 8.
Sting versus Lex Luger.
That is 9.
Sid versus Kevin Nash.
That is 10.
And that is all of the pushed acts I can remember. Okay, so the artist has a match on this show. Does he?
I do not see him here.
Okay. Lash and
So we've
Lash and Disco versus the Mamalukes.
That is 11.
Who else is on this show?
2 matches right in the middle of the show left.
Creative Control versus Harlem Heat.
That is 12.
And what is the final match?
Would you like a hint?
Yeah, go for it.
Someone wrestled twice on this show.
Yeah, Jeff Jarrett.
Nope, someone else.
Let me see. Does Chris Benoit wrestle twice on the show?
He does not.
Ooh, it's not Sid. It's not Booker because that wouldn't make any sense.
I will further that hint by saying he wrestles 2 matches back-to-back on this show.
Are you counting Vampiro versus Oklahoma?
It does officially count as a match.
Okay,
here.
right, fair enough.
For a full 3 minutes they wrestle.
It's fucking longer than most Thunder matches.
Well, 2:52. It is the shortest match on the show, but not by much.
Yeah,
The longest match on this show, by the way, is only 12 minutes.
I was going to say, I wasn't counting that as a match. I do know that happened, but yeah, I wasn't counting that.
In 2020, sorry, I just looked at the reception on Wikipedia. In 2020, Eric Bischoff called Starrcade 99 the absolute worst pay-per-view from opening bell to closing bell that I've ever seen in my life.
And yeah, he was fired to give us that.
Yeah. Look, it's a historically significant show for reasons that don't fully pan out on the night, but we will be talking about for many months to come.
Years. Many years.
And some would say the people involved still haven't shut the fuck up about it.
Isn't it funny that one person cannot be forgiven for a stray boot, and yet that person is now on a Netflix documentary saying how much they love the person that murdered their brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how much they respected.
Respected.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And forgave.
Yeah, because what's a little light murder?
Yeah. Between friends. Right. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Days of Thunder. Thanks very much for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Hello, do you like New Japan Pro Wrestling? Are you a Shin Nihon freak? If so, check out the Super J-Cast with Joel and Damon on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
And even if you fucking hate New Japan Pro Wrestling, listen to the Super J-Cast anyway. Not just for our great show reviews, analysis, and pastrami sandwiches, but there's also usually some dick jokes somewhere in the obligatory opening 30 minutes of absolute nonsense we chat about every single week. That's the Super J-Cast for all the best talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, crisps, and pornography.